If you believe England is only about King Charles and stately, medieval castles, then you have fundamentally misunderstood the modern UK. You have never truly experienced the raw energy of Manchester. Here, as darkness falls, the city undergoes a volatile, almost instantaneous transformation. It trades its reserved British demeanor for a chaotic atmosphere reminiscent of a southern European metropolis. You'll find people shouting in the streets, overflowing bins, parties that rage until the first light of dawn, and even scenes of profound social controversy that we are about to reveal. The staggering paradox is that all of this unfolds in the heart of Europe, a region globally marketed as the undisputed standard of elegance, poise, and rigorous self-control. While London, with its strict adherence to tradition, tirelessly attempts to uphold an image of regal, stiff upper-lip propriety, Manchester lives unapologetically without a filter. This is the crucial intersection of England where the famed, reserved English temperament violently clashes with a raw street-level audacity. Most travel influencers only showcase the sanitized, noble side, the quaint, ancient pubs, the magnificent Victorian facades, the perfectly clipped, gentle British accent. But almost no one dares to show what truly happens when the sun sets, when the formality of afternoon tea gives way to hard liquor, bottles of cheap gin, and utterly uninhibited freedom. Today, we are going to expose what very few dare to show on camera, the raw, untamed, and often uncomfortable underbelly of modern England. This content dives deep and is inherently provocative. So, before we continue, make sure to hit that like button and comment below to engage with the discussion and help this video break through the noise. Anyone who pictures the English as cold, distant, and perpetually polite is in for a significant cultural shock upon arriving in Manchester. The initial impression is often the diametric opposite of what the global audience expects from England. People here speak without lowering their voices. They laugh loudly and without embarrassment. And they seem utterly uninterested in the rigid social formality that so thoroughly defines the capital, London. The women of Manchester in particular embody this dramatic cultural contrast. By day, they often maintain a classic English style, trench coats, long silhouettes, minimal makeup, and an air of professional confidence. But as the clock ticks toward evening, everything changes, radically. They willingly shed their discreet, reserved, daytime appearance for a total, physical and emotional liberation. This means bold, body-conscious clothing choices, impossibly high heels worn even when the weather is bitter and freezing, and a palpable energy that completely dominates and reclaims the city streets. It is no hyperbole to say that the nightlife here is one of the most intense, explosive, and unrestricted in the entire United Kingdom. This very public, uninhibited behavior reflects something far deeper, an enduring, deep-seated spirit of independence forged from a history of struggle. Manchester was not just a city, it was the ferocious cradle of the Industrial Revolution. It's the birthplace of punk music, the spiritual home of passionate football culture, and the very heart of the working-class identity. This potent, defiant mixture has forged a distinct archetype of woman, direct in conversation, fearless in self-expression, and possessing an almost challenging, defiant level of self. For many outsiders, especially those expecting London's decorum, this can be genuinely shocking. But it is precisely this stunning contrast between the deep-rooted traditional and the raw, modern, irreverent that makes the place so magnetically captivating. While London maintains a climate of rigid etiquette and enforced social distance, interactions here are more candid, profoundly human, and often utterly unpredictable. It is only after dark that Manchester truly reveals its uncompromising, authentic vice, a spectacular display of visceral freedom, chaotic sounds, and scenes that no tourism postcard would ever dare to feature. As the curtain of night descends upon Manchester, the city violently shifts its emotional and physical tone. The elegant central streets, filled with quiet offices and civilized cafes during the working day, quickly become the stage for an almost chaotic, uncontrolled energy. Pubs become instantly packed, wall-to-wall music aggressively echoes from every single corner. And what was hours ago a seemingly cold, grey city transforms into a vibrant urban carnival. The night here kicks off early and refuses to die until long after dawn. Young people and adults alike spill uncontrollably onto the sidewalks, vehicular traffic grinds to a halt, and the atmosphere feels far more akin to a volatile Mediterranean port than reserved northern England. The streets are taken over by exuberant, intoxicated groups, booming laughter, and a scene that relentlessly blends pure, unadulterated joy with undeniable urban disorder. The peculiar irony is that all of this happens under the umbrella of a culture that the world associates with impeccable British punctuality and strict discipline. But in Manchester on a Friday night, the rulebook is shredded, and the local regulations seem to take a permanent holiday. And it is in this environment of complete freedom that stark societal contrasts and dangers emerge. You find app drivers charging truly absurd surge prices after midnight, bars that mysteriously forget to return the correct change to drunk patrons, aggressive bouncers creating confusion to force double entry fees, and even smooth-talking fake promoters selling tickets to parties that simply do not exist. These constant nightly hustles and low-level scams are part of a silent, almost normalized underworld that most first-time tourists never fully perceive. But the truth is, for many locals, all of this is simply integrated into the unique experience of volatile, potent mixture of adrenaline, disorganization, and a certain dark, urban charm. Manchester exists as a living, breathing paradox, a city that nominally carries the formal image of English royalty but lives its nights as if it were royalty's direct defiant opposite. Beneath the confident, often boisterous exterior, the English conceal an emotional turmoil that few outsiders truly comprehend. The profound internal discomfort of feeling too deeply in a country that is socially programmed to loathe outward emotional display. Manchester is the most honest, raw portrait of this deeply ingrained cultural conflict. Here, people drink precisely to gain the courage to utter what they are completely incapable of articulating while sober. The night serves as a chaotic, modern confessional, where cheap gin replaces the costly services of a psychologist, and the bar stool becomes a site for a strange, collective, public therapy. This overwhelming psychological need for emotional escape is utterly palpable everywhere. It's etched into the sharp, defensive, ironic humor, in the short, clipped, emotionally stunted sentences, and in the automatic, ingrained apologies that always begin with sorry. The English often appear to apologize simply for their own existence. And when this stringent emotional containment finally shatters, it explodes with immense, unbridled force. That is precisely why the nightlife here feels so physically exaggerated. It is the absolute, powerful antithesis of the structured, quiet daytime life. While London's elite strive to meticulously conceal their societal and economic cracks, Manchester boldly exhibits them without a shred of shame. The city speaks loudly, laughs loudly, and lives what it truly feels, without caring who is watching. And perhaps this is what both profoundly disturbs and magnetically fascinates people simultaneously: the raw, unflinching sincerity that the rest of the country is trained to pretend not to possess. This is the real England, not the staged version posing for glossy tourism postcards, but the complex, flawed version confronting its own gritty reflection every single day. And if you believe this widespread nocturnal mess vanishes perfectly at the moment of dawn, prepare yourself, because what follows shows that the element of chaos here is, in fact, an essential, integral part of the local identity. Even during the day, Manchester attempts to showcase its more polished, professional side. Sleek, modern corporate buildings, sophisticated coffee houses, and that classic, clean English charm visible on many corners. But you only need to walk a short distance to realize that luxury and chaos are not separate entities. They coexist side by side, almost like two inseparable halves of the very same city. On one side, you find newly developed avenues with high-end designer stores, expensive luxury cars, and massive technology offices that define the city's new elite. On the other, you have the old, historic neighborhoods where the industrial working-class past still powerfully asserts its presence. Decaying factories converted into tiny, expensive apartments, heavily graffitied crumbling walls, and traditional pubs that have stood defiantly for over a century. This mix creates an atmosphere that is truly unique, complex, and intoxicating. Manchester manages to be both effortlessly chic and wonderfully, stubbornly decadent at the very same time. And the most profound curiosity is how this dramatic contrast is so perfectly mirrored in its residents. While some live surrounded by extreme comfort and abundant opportunity, others face a demanding, tight routine marked by the UK's crushing high cost of living and the severe challenges of a fragile transitional economy. Even so, there is an overarching, profound sense of collective civic pride, the famous Manchester spirit, an attitude that powerfully blends resilience, irreverence, and a certain legendary stubbornness to simply keep pushing forward, no matter the obstacle. Perhaps that is why the city possesses such an authentic, raw, and vibrating energy. Here, error and massive success walk hand in hand, and luxury cannot, and does not, erase the improvised, harsh reality. Manchester is an honest, unvarnished portrait of what modern England has genuinely evolved into, significantly less about the fading ideals of royalty, and much more about the demanding grit of reality. But what does it ultimately mean to live within this constant, volatile equilibrium between rigid tradition and outright, modern rebellion? To truly live in Manchester is to finally grasp that the real England is a world away from any charming storybook or historical fairy tale. Here, the typical climate is grey and damp, the sky rarely fully clears, and the pace of life maintains a hard, unforgiving, but intensely authentic rhythm. The long-term residents genuinely value brutal honesty far above mere superficial appearances. It is common to see city executives and manual factory laborers having a pint in the same local pub, conversing easily about football, political anxieties, or the miserable weather. The city does not pretend to be flawless, and perhaps that honesty is precisely what makes it so magnetically fascinating to newcomers. The cost of living, for example, is a constant proof of the residents' resistance. Rent is among the highest, most cripplingly expensive in the entire United Kingdom, and anyone who lives here knows that saving any money is an almost impossible art form. Still, Manchester attracts thousands of foreigners every single year, from ambitious students to skilled professionals seeking opportunities far from the social straitjacket and formality of London. It is a city that harshly rewards those who can adapt quickly to the disorder, but profoundly punishes anyone who simply expects immediate comfort or easy access. And the local behavior perfectly reflects this brutal reality. The people are direct, they get straight to the point, and they deeply value personal independence. Social relationships are often free-spirited, casual, and without heavy expectation. Friendships are easy and light, and a dark, sharp sense of humor is the only thing that maintains collective sanity, even when the wind cuts through your coat and the incessant rain refuses to stop. It is the type of intense, challenging place where life is not simple, but it is powerfully, authentically lived. Manchester is a definitive portrait of an England that many people have never truly known. Flawed, loud, defiant, and made of nothing but real flesh and bone. A complex city that fiercely lives between its immense industrial legacy and its dizzying technological future, where the formal ritual of afternoon tea has been decisively replaced by the thumping bass of the pubs and the unbridled, visceral freedom of the streets. In the end, what Manchester so clearly shows is that true, enduring elegance is not found in a royal title or a gilded building, but in the courage to live without any masks, completely true to oneself, no matter the consequences. And this, perhaps, is the most profound, most enduring lesson from the English people. Now I want to hear from you. Would you personally choose to live in this unfiltered, chaotic side of England, where historical glamour shares space with raw urban chaos? Drop your genuine thoughts and opinions in the comments section below right now. And please, if you want more authentic content like this, subscribe to the World Inside Us channel so you never miss our next profound adventure. See you then.